Hey, you're asking the right questions on a lot of different levels. You're travelling a lot these days in your role, Wendy Francis. You've been in Victoria of recent times as well. There's a state election that's coming up in Victoria on the 26th of November. You've met with the opposition leader, Matthew Guy. I wonder if you can let us in on some of the conversation that you've had.
Yeah, I particularly wanted to meet with Mr. Guy because on the back of the Andrew Thorburn issue that he had to resign, like 30 hours after he got the job, he resigned, and that was because he had to choose between his role as chair of City on the Hill Church or the Essendon role. And so I think this shocked everybody in our nation, every fair-minded Australian, that's for sure. But following on from that, the Premier, Daniel Andrews, came out publicly and actually slammed Andrew Thorburn. He slammed his views as bigotry and hatred. And the views that we're talking about include having a view on life as far as the unborn are concerned, and also a view on sexuality. And so this was really shocking I was certainly all Christians, but I think the majority of Australians were actually taken back by this. So I wanted to hear from Matthew Guy, as the opposition leader coming into an election, what his opinion was. And we were pleased with his response on this particular issue. He was very clear that demonising people who wanted to have a different idea of sexuality or their pro-life views was actually ridiculous. He called it ridiculous. He also said it was offensive and very concerning. And he made it very clear that people of faith will absolutely have stronger rights under his government. So we were really pleased with his response, but it has been quite a shocking sort of event and certainly highlighted the need for religious discrimination bill, which is a federal issue that we are still pursuing.
Wendy, isn't it interesting when you talk about the Liberal opposition in Victoria, oftentimes you come to a position where they're not a whole lot different to the Labor Party under Dan Andrews. Did you get the impression that there was some way that Matthew Guy wanted to differentiate himself from Daniel Andrews?
Yeah, I think many people have been very concerned about this because the Liberal Party in Victoria have been so-called progressive, and I hate using these terms, but that's, I think everyone understands what I'm saying. But he did make a number of different differentiations, which I was really pleased about. He certainly came out very strongly against injecting rooms, the drug injecting rooms, because under Daniel Andrews, these drug injecting rooms are very near schools. They are places that people on drugs gather, and they are very concerning to many parents in Victoria. So he came out strong against that. He also he was very clear on parental rights as well, because that's another thing that's very concerning to people in Victoria. Parents have been demonised even for discussing gender and sexuality with their children if it doesn't go along with the latest trend in what people would think gender and sexuality should be. And certainly Christian parents want to push back on that. And Matthew Guy was very clear that under his government, parents would not be, policed on what they are discussing with their children.
Did he have some perspectives on the sorts of division that can happen when you've got a leadership, particularly like Dan Andrews? Did he have any perspectives on division?
He did. He was saying that the policies under the Dan Andrews government have brought a very divisive Victoria. So they've pitted people against people. And so he believes that under Dan Andrews, Victoria is in a much worse shape than what they inherited. And he wants to bring back a unity. He said he wants to bring back a Victoria where parents are free to speak their mind, where people shouldn't be demonised for their views. He wants to bring back a respectful discussion. He said he doesn't mind people speaking their views, but he wants people to be respectful. And we certainly agree with that.
And of course, the election coming up on the 26th of November. Any perspectives from you, Wendy Francis, on how the election campaigns are going from both sides? I think the general perception seems to be that Dan Andrews is going to win, even though not everyone thinks he's done a great job. What are your thoughts on what's coming with the election on the 26th of November?
the polls would certainly indicate that Dan Andrews is going to win. But I think, even this latest issue of Thorburn, the Andrew Thorburn issue, has given people a little bit of a shock. So that may change the polls a little. But regardless, I think what the people of Victoria really need to be concerned about is their upper house, because there needs to be a stopgap measure. There needs to be an upper house that can actually check and balance some of the more radical stuff that Daniel Andrews has pushed through in this past Parliament period. So we're really pushing for people to be very careful when they vote in the upper house, to vote below the line and to choose very carefully, because those preferences sometimes get people elected into that upper house who have agendas very opposite to what Christians would want to see there. So upper house is crucial. But at the moment, it would look as if Dan Andrews is going to romp it in again.
No doubt we'll be talking some more about the Victorian state election with you very soon, Wendy Francis.